This is a podcast which does not shy away from difficult and vulnerable topics, and we ask you to take care of yourselves when you listen. The content is of an adult nature, and we do swear at times.
Welcome to the Autistic Licence podcast. I'm Leo in London.
I'm Siana, and I'm in Carrickfergus in Northern Ireland.
We invite you to listen in on our conversations as we experiment with unmasking in an autistic space. We talk about what it means to discover we're autistic as adults, especially with established careers as therapists. We want people to know that autistic therapists exist and to broaden the conversation about neurodiversity. You're so welcome to join us, whoever you are and wherever in the world you are. We hope you'll find something of interest and connection here. Remembered that you're going with Lana to Derry for the Halloween festival, and then that just led on to, I wonder how certain parts of that interplay and intersect with an autistic experience. And then I kind of started coming up across a lot of, as ever, contradictions in my head. You know, as I say, the kind of the straight speaking, plain, factual nature of a lot of autistic thinking, the logic, the passion that I certainly have, around logic. But then that absolutely can intersect with something seemingly contradictory, like the unknown or imposing imagery, cultural imagery, supernatural imagery. How we might also be... Then actually, I suppose, if you start thinking about superstition as a general great big umbrella term, then that starts to come into the world of OCD potentially as well. You know, I would certainly have, and in the childhood experience of OCD that I've spoken about before, that felt like superstition to me at the time. That felt, it was one of the shameful things to me, because I suppose maybe, I'm making this up as I go along in case you couldn't tell, that part of my autistic thinking was, what a load of nonsense, don't be ridiculous. But my OCD was going, yes, but I'm terrified because if I don't turn around on the spot and then touch the cushions in a particular order when I leave the living room, then a bad thing will happen.
Yes.
And that certainly sounds like a superstitious way of thinking. Mm-hmm. So there is an intersection there I hadn't really thought about.
But it doesn't have to be a superstition as well. Like I don't know what's... Actually, I can see how in the culture that I was part of, within Christian circles, there would have been a superstition that you had to ward off the badness of Halloween. So I'm aware of that.
That's
being
true.
There, you know, there was something around the unknown of it, and that then now actually I can see it in a different way because Lana's seeing it in a fun kind of way. So maybe that's allowing me to see it in a fun kind of way and not to attach it to any of the spiritual things that it would have been attached to. I guess like within the church, it would have been like, this is a bad thing to be part of. You will be involving yourself in dark energies and dark powers and demonic rituals. And it was very spiritualized in terms of how it was seen. And I guess being unhooked from that now, to me, it's a cultural thing. And I don't have those kind of, maybe that word superstitions around it being something bad. It just is. And it's something about the artistry of it, because that's my lens, because that's Lana's lens and what she's sharing with me.
Yes.
Whereas in the past it was, no, this is an evil festival that you should not partake in, and almost like if you go near it, then you will be, you know, demons will jump on you, or that kind of, those kind of teachings or thinking about it.
That's quite fascinating as well. And I think even again as a child, I can remember hearing protesting voices from Christian communities about the celebration of Halloween. And I remember, and again, here's that kind of ridiculous, cold, straight logic autistic thinking of a child. If they think that it's totally invalid and it's, theirs is the only true way and that's real and everything else, what does it matter? It doesn't matter. How can it, if you don't believe in it, how can it be sacrilegious?
They did believe in it. They believed in it because they believed it was a festival where, quote unquote, Satan would have his way.
Okay.
So they believed that it was actually wrong to dismiss it because it was actually involving yourself in very dark forces.
Now, you see, if those people had explained themselves in the way that you just did in 10 seconds, that would have made more sense to me.
Well, I did have it explained to me. Well, no, I did have it explained to me in those kind of ways. So,
but I'd have been a less judgy 11-year-old or whatever it was.
Yeah. And if I can see if you believe that, then it is a very wrong thing to do. Yeah.
Here's a memory that's just come to me out of nowhere. There was a bloke in the bit of North London I grew up in who was Jesus, essentially. He looked like Jesus, dressed like Jesus, and, looked like the culturally inappropriate, inaccurate depictions we usually get in the West of who Jesus was. Looked like that, dressed like that, and believed that that's who he was. Okay. And so he would go around, essentially blessing people. And I just remembered that he came. I was in the barber's one afternoon, and he just appeared. He just walked in and told us all that we should not believe in superstition. That's why it just came into my head. Don't believe in superstition. There were a whole load of don'ts, and I can't remember the rest, but that's the one that stuck in my mind. Don't believe in superstition. You don't get people like that wandering around anymore.
Oh, you do in Belfast. Come to Belfast City Centre on a Saturday, you get people like that.
Seriously, who actually, though, in this way, that he believed who he was, rather than a street preacher, of which I know many of those. We certainly have lots of those around here.
Okay, no, maybe I mean preachers. Maybe not so many going around saying that they're Jesus, but who knows?
And I remember the barber taking him to task, not for just wandering in off the street and hassling his customers, or for, as would have been very common at the time, just to ridicule him for being mentally ill, which, absolutely would have happened when people like that turned up and started talking to you unexpectedly, but actually just reasoned with him and was cross with him for just assuming that he was right, there was no other way of believing in anything, and imposing that on people without their permission. He actually kind of did properly see it as, what's the word? Again, I'm an
infringement.
Yeah, but there's a specific word when you get up in somebody's face, like an intrusion. Doesn't matter. I'm struggling with simple words at the moment. It's getting better. Okay.
That's if that's a side effect of ADHD medication, then it's
it absolutely predates by a couple of months, and actually I am noticing it's a little bit better than it has been recently.
Leo has been on a placebo dose of ADHD meds for the last couple of days.
A placebo dose would be none at all. There are effects that I am experiencing which I don't necessarily think are chemical, but are assisted by the fact that I've been looking forward to the process of titration, which I started the day before yesterday.
Just the fact that you're not drinking coffee anymore, and like the fact that you're not drinking 8 cups of coffee a day, you're not
you were saying that yesterday.
To your change of mood, but you are attributing this small dose of
I'm not. No, I was very... I'm noticing that it's happened simultaneously.
There's lots of things happening at once.
I was very specific. We had a conversation yesterday. I was very specifically not attributing it to things, but noticing.
That's
and,
right.
and that is a thing that, like I will often do, because there's something happening, in this case, trialling some ADHD meds, then that kind of motivates me to make some changes. And that's not really very helpful, because then I've made, how do you then extrapolate which are the effective changes that you've made, or what's intersecting with what? So I am drinking coffee right now, but it's decaf, and I'm not particularly noticing the difference. But yes, you're right. I have been a coffee drinker for 7 years, and I kind of basically stopped caffeinated coffee overnight. So that is bound to have an effect. Normally, though, I would have expected that to be an unpleasant effect. I would have thought that that would make me feel some kind of whatever caffeine withdrawal looks like, which I don't really know.
But you've got another stimulant in instead.
Yeah, but as you say, an extremely low dose of one right now. So I don't know that it's taking the place. And the many people who listen to us who are ADHD will probably be aware of this, because I've obviously been reading up a lot, but particularly about coffee, that you really don't want it once you're kind of titrated. A lot of people, I've read a lot of people saying that, you know, they tried a cup of coffee and they just never want to drink caffeinated coffee again. The effects were so awful, intersected with the meds, but I haven't experienced that yet.
Why did you not drink coffee until 7 years ago?
I did, but not habitually. It just became it was a post-surgery. That's when I kind of date it from, that post my bariatric surgery and I lost lots of weight. Then obviously my mind was very focused on eating and drinking for a while, and I developed some nice, you know, autistically comforting and ADHD comforting rituals, particularly around the morning. And I got into shaving and I got into coffee. Those are the two big interests that I had that have sustained for quite some years, both of which are really fading off now, actually. So that's why I kind of date me as a coffee drinker, like every day, rather than just when somebody offered me a coffee or I felt like it.
To 7 years ago. Okay.
Yes, that's right. And who knew? Decaffeinated coffee tastes just the same.
It probably does taste the same, but people take it because of the hit of the
I think that's
coffee.
I've always assumed that's what I was doing. Yes. There's a video clip that I've got from 2001 when I was in Las Vegas with my cousin, and I remember we were up all night in casinos, etc., as you're supposed to do when you're in Las Vegas, and ended the day with breakfast at sort of 6:30 in the morning at the breakfast place. And that my cousin's girlfriend ordered decaffeinated coffee, and I just went into this rant about what's the point. You don't drink it for the taste, you drink it for the property. So actually, that goes way back another 16 years before I'm talking about, when obviously I had some views about caffeinated and decaffeinated coffee.
That's right. You've probably created a nice, neat narrative about only starting at 7 years ago. Actually, it goes way back.
It certainly does. Yes. That's a little illustration.
You're talking to me and not normal people who would just let that pass. But I need to know exactly why you say that you only started 7 years ago.
Actually, that's interesting, though, because me having only just remembered, you know, that video clip, maybe it'll find its way into the show notes. I don't know. That you questioned.
I don't know that.
No, I just meant that maybe just a little bit of the audio of me doing my rant. I don't know. You brought me up on the date without any kind of information that might have been inaccurate. There was a suspicion that you had, knowing me, obviously, that I had invented a bit of a false timeline around that.
I didn't know what the reason was. I just heard you say 7 years.
Yeah,
and
you
I wonder what the story is around it.
Okay.
And then...
Yes,
then you came up with, actually there's this. And then I thought, okay, so it's that you've created a narrative around it. Yeah. I didn't know if you were just going to say I didn't actually like the taste until I was 50. And I don't know, like that kind of thing happens. Didn't know what you were going to say.
No. It was the fact that I gave a specific timeline.
You gave information, and I thought, why?
That was it. No, I realise now, because I said very specifically 7 years, that piqued your... Why are you saying that?
Why 7 years?
Yes.
Yes, pick up on all the information. That's an autistic thing. We don't get the whole, we just go in on the detail. And
and what does that look like, and why did that happen then?
Yes. Why did you put that detail in that sentence?
Yeah. Yes. It is. It's the same thing as just wanting a little bit more context around every so-called fact.
Yes.
And then that allows us to question the fact then, if it raises suspicions, as it did just then, correctly.
But more to you, I mean, you said it was me that was suspicious of it. I wasn't. I was curious about it. It was you that corrected yourself, or you that remembered that, and then thought, well, how does those two things correlate?
Yes.
And then I guess I then invited consideration on it.
We're talking about talking.
We're therapists.
Back to being meta again. my mum has been abroad for a week visiting a friend, and she flew back last night. And talking to my dad, I found out that actually she's not doing the usual route, which is Hamburg to Stansted on Ryanair. She's actually was on British Airways, so she was flying into Heathrow. And it so happens that there's this particular YouTube channel which basically streams live the landings at Heathrow. And I also have the app that you know about, where I track flights and I can see where they're flying over. And so I started tracking her flight, and I saw that she was going to fly over my house. And so I went to the window and I filmed the plane going over. And then I turned the TV on and got the YouTube channel. And then when it came into land, I filmed a really amazing shot, because this channel's very good, of her landing. And then before she'd finished taxiing, I WhatsApped her both those video clips to say, this is you flying over our house, and then this is you landing. It was just such an autistic thing to do. And I loved the fact that it was possible, that I could, that I had this technology that would track flights in a way that I found, really engaging, and then could see, because I also do know the flight paths around Heathrow, and I know that on a particular approach they do go over our house. And so I was able to film that, and then I realised, and I can film the landing as well. Of course, I was filming the screen of somebody else filming it, but
but still,
how did you do that? How did you do that? Said my mum in the reply.
That's a nice story.
I have noticed, so what I have noticed this weekend, for whatever the reasons, is that I still have as busy a brain as I did, but the thoughts or tasks or whatever they are, normally what happens is everything has equal priority. This is, I know that's a very common experience, and it's very difficult then to single something out. And we then get into the thing that we've talked about many times, which is, I've got 5 things to do, but if I do thing 1, then I'm not doing 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then you end up paralysed and you don't do anything. And that seems to have shifted a little bit for me.
1, I. You said you end up paralysed.
I said 1. Oh, do I do that?
I.
Yes,
I just want you to say I.
Thank you. And 1 tends to find that very difficult. And I have noticed that. Thank you. I have noticed that I have been able to not only pick something out to do, but the other thing that will often happen when I'm able to do that is the other things evaporate. So I may well be able to engage in the thing that I've chosen, but when I get to the end of it, oh shit, what were the other 4 things? They've gone. And this weekend I've noticed that they haven't at all. They've patiently waited. They've not evaporated. So so I did one of my plasma donation things yesterday morning at silly o'clock in the morning, as I usually do. So I had like an hour's drive to this place, as I often do. I get there early, so I got to sit in the car for half an hour, and I was listening to an excellent book, which I will link in the description, which is It's Not a Bloody Trend, which is about late diagnosed ADHD, and it's really, really good. And I was listening to that, and it was sparking some ideas, and particularly around the fact that I intend to start vlogging a little bit, making some social media posts, all things that I've been promising to do for a very long time and haven't done. And I started having some very specific little ideas that I wanted to remember. My watch is kind of a replication of my phone, and they run the same apps, and so I was able to get the recorder on my watch and just say some notes, and then they spear it up into the cloud and I can get at them through Google. And I did about 8 or 9 of those, just sat in the car. And I've done that before, but what I noticed that was different was that, as I said, I wasn't forgetting the other things that I wanted to record as well.
Yes.
And that's a shift for whatever reason. It's a really welcome one. And I have found that this morning I've had a very big list of things to do that, again, as you were saying about yours, they don't have to be done today. Certain of them do, because they're always Monday things. But again, I haven't felt panicked about the things I'm neglecting, air quotes, because it's not neglecting, while I'm doing one thing. And that anxiety seems to have lifted. And I have, as I've said to you, I've just been in a really good mood. This is kind of day 3 of being pretty consistently in a good mood. Now that may, because I can't be objective about it, look quite manic. I really don't know. I don't know if my energy is right up and I'm babbling. I mean, I accept that I can do that anyway. And maybe that's what's been going on, but I don't know.
But you're also sleeping really well, which means that you're not on sleep deprivation and battling that.
That's absolutely
true. The whole
true.
time. But it will be really interesting to hear feedback on whether you are babble.
Yes.
You know, whether it's like I'll go and then I'll stop or what. But then again, if that works, that works.
Yes. And it is a version of me that's always existed anyway, but it might be maybe more consistent or more useful. And that's the bit that I suppose from a selfish point of view I'm interested in, is whether it's useful, whether it relieves me of anxiety or guilt or shame or stress. So far, so good. But again, I understand the psychosomatic effects of knowing that I'm on a medication that may help. That's definitely helping in itself.
Well, I guess that's okay.
Yes, it
doesn't
is.
matter.
It really is okay. Yeah. It really is. Yes.
And we got 1,000 downloads in 30 days.
Yes, that was really lovely. Something happened to our listenership over the last week or two, actually. It crept up, then it leapt up. And it's kind of, it was like 300 in a week-ish.
That's right. There was the weekly went up too. That's massive.
Well, it is from the last, because it is the last 7 days where we've had those spikes, but we had a couple
so weekly went out and monthly went. Well, of course, they affected each other. But yes. Well, obviously, if you're getting 300 a week, you're going to get 1,000 in a month. But we previously have not had 1,000 in a month.
No,
we've had just under
we hadn't
sometimes.
Had 300. This is the first month with 1,000. It's the first week with over 300, I think.
Yes.
Which is great. And the thing about doing this is you just don't know what's happening. You don't know if somebody, you've said this before, haven't you? You know, somebody might be doing a training and they come across the podcast and then they share it with their cohort on their class or something.
Well, I don't think I've said that. That sounds like something you said.
No, I'm sure you did. Did you not? Oh, maybe not.
I like it like that. I think that this is why I try and curtail you from advertising, because I want it just to be like that. People discover it and share it. I think there's this feels like something that I can actually celebrate because it's just happening. Yes. Whereas whenever you say, oh, should I share it with this group? Should I share it with this group? Then it feels really needy to me. But this feels like, no, actually people are finding it and they're choosing to do it rather than us pushing it at people. Don't like that.
Well, we see this a little bit differently. I don't see it as pushing it at people. I see it as helping people find it in the way that you would like. But yes, the ideal is that it spreads organically, of course, because then you get the air quotes right people listening, the people that want to be engaged.
Yeah, and I think that I might swing so far the other way from you. Like even when you talk about like your family and you want to tell them and you want them to listen to the podcast. Like I don't tell my family.
Oh, I do and I don't. No, that is a mix.
It's like,
but I hear what you're saying.
It's like I make it almost hard, but then if they did and then if they chose to listen, then I might actually believe they were interested. But yet, like they maybe just don't know. So, and I think that's, I'm not even just talking about my family, like in general, maybe I'm a bit like that. I'm so cautious and so unsure of whether anybody would want to know anything. That then, to me, then it does seem pushy to like volunteer something. But then if they end up finding it, like just say somebody who knows me found the podcast and then came to me and said, hey, I found this. I would be 100% able to believe that they had chosen to listen to it and tell me. Whereas if I had told them about it and then they said, I would be like, oh, maybe you just felt like you had to because I was putting that in your face all the time. Or I mentioned that, or I shared that, or so it's like, and it does just come from this total lack of belief that anyone would want to know the thing.
Yes.
But then if they prove that they do, then they really do.
Yes. And prove
like
in your terms as well. What I would say in support of that, though, coming from it from a different angle, is that if somebody listens because I've been pestering them, and they won't stay listening.
Yeah.
You will know, because that has happened. And I know that there are certain people who gave it a go, wasn't their cup of tea, and they don't listen anymore. In terms of people I know. And they haven't told me that. I just know because the conversation just completely dies away. So it's not. I
would find it really hard to cope with that, though.
Yeah, it's not great.
Knowing.
It's not great.
No, it's
Your
not.
way of doing it is better, I think, qualitatively. I definitely agree with that. But it just comes with the frustration that you were talking about before, that there are things that if somebody close to me were just to spend a little bit of time listening to the odd random episode, they'd find out so much that I think they want to know, or that would be helpful. And
yes. But maybe they don't want to know.
Maybe.
Like you've said, I think they want to know. Like, maybe they really don't. And that's just uncomfortable.
Oh, in an avoidant way, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Or in a way
true.
that challenges them, or might lead to them having to see you differently, or accommodate, in inverted commas.
That's it.
You differently. And I think that I have this belief that people wouldn't really want to know all that, because it's much, much, much easier just to keep me confined in what suits and what works.
I think we absolutely have that in common, actually. I think that's probably very, very true, and really, really sad. That's a hard thing to get to grips with.
Yes. And but there's also, like, I can hear me and what I'm saying, and hear the level of RSD that is just habitual for me. Like, probably since day dot of people will not want to know me. And so don't put yourself out there, because you will be rejected. Wait for them to come to you. Yeah. And then I can even hear that, like, I'm in such a lucky place with my practice where I don't need to advertise or anything, and people do come to me. But I can also see it in that, where sometimes people have said, oh, it's quite hard to find you. And I thought, well, I don't really know why, like, because I have a website, but because maybe I don't promote that, or like sometimes I will share it, especially if it's like supervision related, and people ask specifically. But that's more like just in comments or something. But I, by and large, even though I allow it to be out there in the public domain, I don't promote it. And I guess that people who in real life, well, then I don't really use my Facebook. I'm not sure what I'm saying. I think all I'm saying is that there's a general respect, is how I would see it, although I know it could be based on RSD, but a general respect that people don't want me in their face. And so I make it that it's up to them. If they want to search for the information, it will be available, but they have to look.
They do. And that is bound to exclude some people.
Yeah.
Without the confidence necessarily, or their own RSD, which is that you wanted them, you'd make it easier to find you. So they might be being rejected. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that this is bound to be one of the side effects of that. There are people who probably would want to genuinely engage with you in all kinds of ways, but one or more of those blocks will be in place, and that's partly because of how you handle your own sensitivity to exposure and
also that's only one strand of this. There's also a strand of demand avoidance that feeds very, very, very strongly in not wanting to be found by very many people, because otherwise there'll be a demand to relate in whatever way. So it's not just that.
And you illustrate that so clearly, the enormous intersection overlap between ADA and RSD.
Is there?
Well,
Is there? Is
but
that
no,
what
but
I'm saying? Or am I saying that they're separate and I don't have such a strong RSD as some people, but I have a strong ADA?
Okay, yes. What you were saying was that demand avoidance for you is a much stronger force, perhaps, than RSD is, because you do, as I know really well, you do have a lot of confidence in yourself and how you want to live your life, and that isn't influenced in the way that it is for a lot of other people by other people. So yeah, you're probably right. But I was just thinking of how they can both block the same things.
That's right.
You can not do something because of demand avoidance and or RSD. If you've got both of those very active, that's really, really paralysing.
It's a no-brainer. Well, is it? You just said that's paralysing and saw it in that way, but I was saying, well, that's a no-brainer to do it then. Ticks both those boxes. Like they're not contradictory.
No, they're not. No,
they're complementary. So if you've
unless
got both
unless
of
they're
them,
stopping you do something that you need or want to do, or
but
would like
ADA
things to be
doesn't.
different.
Yeah, okay.
No.
ADA doesn't do that.
doesn't
Maybe
do that.
PDA would do that.
Yes.
But
yes.
okay, so you're saying maybe the RSD would block something that I would want to do. Yeah, because I brought this up because I said, is there RSD there? So I'm obviously not dismissing that that's there in why I want other people to make the approach.
Yes.
And want to find out and show that they want to find out. Yeah.
And then demand avoidance might stop you telling them when they ask. Almost certainly will, if you're me.
Almost certainly will. Yeah.
That's actually quite tricky. And I'm not talking about necessarily my relationship with you, but just generally speaking, those two things. And I can think of versions of that where I will have ended up, upset by that combination that one wants people to show an interest and approach you, but once one has...
Why don't you just say I?
All right. Well, it's not. I'm not necessarily but I'm not necessarily talking about me in the extremes that I'm expressing here. But I may want people to make the approaches to me and make me feel that their engagement is therefore kind of genuine with me, that they want to be. But also, if I'm then resistant to, which I'm not in the way that you are, and that's maybe why I need the one here. But if I am then resistant to sharing or being vulnerable or being exposed in that way, then that makes me, in some people's eyes, unapproachable or just, careful. So, I mean, I try... Yeah. So to use us as an example, I would try not to be put off saying, how are you? What are you doing today? How was your evening? Because as you say, though, there, and you are saying you do want people to have that interest, and that when I express it, it's, as I hope you know, it's absolutely genuine, and that they are similar questions that you will ask me. But what I'm saying is the danger there is that I stop asking you because I don't want you to feel uncomfortable or pressured to be exposed or disclose, when I know that often you don't, and then you think that I am less interested, or I end up just talking about myself. That's the risk. And I hope that I have kind of the fortitude to continue to ask regardless. Yeah,
it is a bit of a head fuck, really, though, because it is true that I do ask. And when I do ask, I am genuinely interested and I want you to answer.
I know, I believe you.
And yet, when you ask, if I don't want to talk about that thing, I just won't answer the question.
Which is fine.
And I don't feel pressure to do so.
Okay.
But
do you?
It is not nice. And don't tell me not to be mean about myself, but it's it's
mean.
Not nice.
It is a head fuck.
It is not nice because, and in some ways, do I want to be asked, or I don't know, do I want to be asked? But
I think part of you doesn't.
Yeah,
part of you is bothered by being asking, but I can't not, because that will set up a dynamic which I really, really don't want, which is then there's nothing mutual there. All that I will do is volunteer things about myself or, my surroundings and my life. And I'm pretty sure you will receive that as a lack of interest in yours. So I think I have to risk, in the name of our relationship, I have to risk pissing you off by asking the same question.
Doesn't piss me off.
Well, you said something, all right, but you said something about part of you doesn't want to be asked. That's all I'm, okay.
Yeah, but I don't think it I said that, but I did say I don't think it pisses me off because I know I don't have to answer, really.
Okay.
But I think I would still tell you the things even if I didn't ask the question. I don't know that I actually need to be asked a question to start to tell someone something.
I know that, but if I were to, and I'm not going to, stop asking,
yes,
stop checking in on you and saying, how are you, or anything, that is by definition a lack of interest. There's no other way to interpret that.
Well, but I will feel the same and get the same permission and interest and connection if you send me a photograph of one of your dogs than if you say, good morning. Actually, that's not a value judgment or whatever you'd say, because I would respond to good morning. Or if you say, like, how are you doing today? Or if you send me an emoji, a GIF, that is hello. That is all I need.
I know. Okay.
I don't need all the questions.
I understand that. The question is genuine. That's what I'm saying to you. And I'm not going to stop asking a question that I want the answer to, even knowing that I'm unlikely to get the answer. That's not the point. Because what I want to communicate to you always and forever is that there is genuine interest, and I want that contact. Now, that comes with a lovely permission, which most people don't have, I'm going to say in my own favour, which is I'm not going to get upset when you say I don't want to talk about that. Most people... Well,
normally I don't even answer it.
Sometimes
I think that's the thing.
I don't
answer the question.
And by the way, on that good morning thing, yes, I did need to put that, because you absolutely have responded to me saying good morning, go, oh, is it? Well, that's an assumption.
You're just using this as a way to list all of my completely objectionable traits that I've already said this is just examples, listeners, of the things that I've already said I do. And that's why I said it's a head fuck. It is offensive. It is hard to take the time to learn that stuff about relating to someone like me. And I think what you're saying, it's the same as I will not stop asking Lana how her day was.
Right.
She will not stop not answering the question.
There you go.
She never answers the question, but she must know that I care enough, because she tells me the things when she wants to tell me the things. A week later.
Now you're advocating for me.
I'm understanding.
Okay, but all I'm saying is
why
in that
your
dynamic,
motivation would be, but not that it might not work.
It doesn't matter if it works or not in terms of getting an answer. What I will not stop communicating to you is that I care, just in the way that you was saying Lana is never going to tell you how her day is, but you know that by you asking, she is going to, even if it's annoying in the moment, she's going to have a deep sense of being engaged with and cared about.
Maybe. I need to check with her on that.
Well, she wouldn't necessarily even know, would she?
She wouldn't necessarily
that could be
even
subconscious.
know.
But that totally justifies what I'm saying, with, I say, the caveat of I don't get upset. And I'm not listing all the things about you that are annoying, because they don't annoy me. That's the point. And that's what I don't care if this goes out or not. This is what I want you to hear. But what you've also added, which I kind of hadn't really factored in, that there are other ways. There are, pictures and emojis and stuff, and that's lovely as well. Because I get lovely feelings when you do that for me as well. That's really lovely. You will send me a picture of the cats and a nice emoji and whatever, and that is real connection. I agree with you. So I bear that in mind on top, but not instead of. I can't do that.
Yeah. I
can't feign a lack of interest. That's all.
But it's really obvious from us having this kind of conversation how easy it is to misinterpret and misunderstand those things.
Even for us. Yes.
Well, we've done a lot. I mean, we're talking now, this is an example of something that we've talked about in various ways at different times, privately. And the same as like the way that your RSD comes out, where you'll sometimes not initiate contact because you think, I don't want to hear from you because you've got nothing, quote unquote, worthwhile to say. And, you know, that then could be interpreted by me as that you're too busy to even think about communicating with me or whatever, you know, because it's not then I want to just say hi, but I don't have anything. Because you equate it with having something worthwhile to say rather than saying hi. Whereas I'm much more likely to just say, here's a picture, I don't want any dialogue or any comments, you know. And so it comes out in different ways, and we've talked about all that, but a lot of people just interpret through their own lenses what's going on. And I think that's then what I am saying about, I understand that it comes across in a certain way or could come across in a certain way. And for people listening, that's why I've got this insecurity that it's like, this is all proof that it is objectionable, like, because in neurotypical polite society, it is objectionable unless you understand all the nuances around it and the language and what works for certain people, which sometimes isn't questions and isn't invitation to talk. Same as in therapy.
Yes.
That is not necessarily how anybody is helped. Sometimes people need to be asked, how are you? Sometimes they actually need some kind of a smile and a gesture of welcome, and then they start wherever they want to start.
And this is the phrase that I mean, I'm sure it exists, it's just English, but, you know, the misinterpretation of intention is the phrase I use most certainly in couples therapy, but in just anything to do with relationships. And when as I often do, deal with cross neurotype couples and relationships, that's really dialed up. And it happens all the time, and it's never questioned, because once you've interpreted something, you've interpreted it because you know you're right. So it never occurs to you that you're wrong or it needs reframing. You've made your interpretation, and that's it. And you're right. What we do, which is lovely, is we talk about it, and we can uncover it then. But you're right. And what I was, doing my little hand clap before was I suddenly realised the balance between us, actually, of where those things are driven by ADA and RSD. For you, 90% demand avoidance, 10% rejection. And for me, it's the other way around.
Oh, maybe.
I think so. I think so. And I think that's why it's so important to say the things out loud again. You know, I don't have that demand avoidance thing when I'm, as you know, in the examples you gave.
The question.
But when I don't make contact, it is, as you just pointed out to me, and I hadn't thought that through, that's an RSD thing, but it looks like a demand avoidance thing. I'd love to send a message, but I can't. You know, the thing, the classic again about taking 3 weeks to reply to, a text that a friend sends you.
Yes.
That's usually seen as a demand avoidance thing.
No, it's RSD.
For me, it's RSD, for sure, always.
And you don't experience any ADA?
No, I definitely do. But
hang on.
Oh,
whenever I ask the questions, because you just answer the questions. You like being asked questions, actually. Yeah.
It's a form of care. It's a form of love.
That's right, and it probably offsets the RSD. Well, she wouldn't ask a question unless, like, that's an invitation to talk. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Because you know that I would not ask the question unless I wanted
exactly.
to know.
You are probably maybe the only person I know who, I mean, apart from clients, I guess, who would ask a question, and I have 100% confidence that was a genuine question that you want an answer to, and that you are interested, and that it will mean something to you to have that question answered, rather than, I know you would never ask anything like that out of politeness. I don't think you do anything out of politeness. It has to be felt. That's another autistic way of
fake it sometimes.
I bet
if I have to, I can mask. not with you. Why would I need to do it with you? But if there's, I think I can. I think that there's.
Oh yes.
I can be polite if I.
Yes, I meant. I did mean in relation to me. Yes, we can definitely all do that. That is what masking is.
I think sometimes people can't, but I think, or sometimes people say that they can't. but I think like I can actually. I think I can.
Yes,
maybe,
how would you know?
How would I know? Maybe people think that I'm downright impolite all the time, even whenever I'm trying very hard not to be difficult. I don't know.
And these will all remain ultimately unknowables, but at least we uncover this, and we uncover it between us, which is lovely in itself, and then we broadcast it. And I think that's got to be, I was going to say useful, but I mean it's got to be a little bit. Now, there's nothing I can say that isn't up myself now, but it must be nice to hear that third person over there and relate. You know, I'm really getting that from this ADHD book. It's not a bloody trend at the moment. I'm getting a lot of that from, particularly because I'm listening to it, because I'm not yet dared. I need a little bit of a higher dose, I think, before I start reading books again. But hearing how that narrative is put together, particularly in the case of this book, there's so much to relate to again.
Yes.
Like I did when I immersed myself in all of the autistic communities on that first diagnosis.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
And that's really lovely, because that is, I mean, we know it's validating to hear somebody else have the same experience. But when I start thinking, when you and I are talking sometimes, now we're just talking, and that's got to be too much. But then I think, no, if I was hearing that and relating to it, I'd really treasure that. Autisticlicense@gmail.com. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Me and Nana were out yesterday at a shopping centre. We parked opposite a car, and the number plate said SFU on it. And I said to Lana, do you see that car and think it's telling us to shut the fuck up? And she was like, no, Mum, it's just you. And it's just come into my head there that, like, what you just said, like, people might just come back and say, no, shut the fuck up. Yes. So that is just an example of how my circular autistic mind works, that because you just made that invitation to our listeners, I immediately saw a number plate and thought, yes, that's what people would say to us. And maybe that's rejection, sensitive, whatever, right there. It's hilarious that stayed in my mind and came up just now. It's probably quite worrying.
That's great. Well.
Yeah.
Are we concluding?
Lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, and tell your friends that you think would be... Yeah, no, do.
Okay, you can tell your friends. So don't do it just because we've said it.
Yeah, no, do that, but just don't tell Siana that you've done it. Because if we get to 10,000 downloads, Siana may not remember this, I'm allowed to buy a particular piece of equipment for the podcast.
I don't remember this. What is the agreement? I probably thought we'd never get to 10,000.
Exactly, I'm sure. Much earlier this year, I was looking at the dedicated podcast recorder. There are quite a few of them, and I wanted to get one, and you said, no, we don't need it.
Why do we need it? Why do you think we need it now?
We don't.
Okay, you heard it here, listeners, we don't need it.
We don't need it, and I'm actually going off the idea, but I'm just remembering that you did say when we get to 10,000 downloads, you can buy it.
That sounds quite like I was dealing with you as a child.
Yes, yes.
As if like I knew the thing wouldn't happen,
yes.
So I just gave you an answer.
Yes, you were speaking from the luxurious position of that's never going to happen.
Be like, that's never going to happen, and this person won't remember that anyway, if it ever does in another
universe. 1 million listeners, I'll take you to Disneyland. Oh, goody.
Okay. So goodbye for today.
And we'll speak to you again soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Autistic License podcast. You can connect with us via Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at autisticlicense.com or by email at autisticlicense@gmail.com. We spell license LICENCE. We also have a Facebook community. You can search for Autistic License Siana and Leo. Siana spelled SIANA, or you can click on the link in the show notes.